He just said he stole it. In the middle of a mountain like this. You asked if he wasn't a thief. Chu asked, so stupid, Theo. When you turn around, you're a thief. This makes the AI spray, thinking he's crazy. They observed the sword of the middle butt. The flower written on it is tomorrow. This flower is the flower of the mountain. Is the madman of Hoa Sun sent me to ponder. When it comes to the dragon flower, middle buttock stupefied, surprised, stuttering. In the end, he let his true identity be revealed. Feet puffed out loud. I thought that even though Sao was a disciple of the painting, or at least a man of honor, you are not ashamed. My ass continues to be stubborn. I told you it wasn't. He picked his ears and whispered something. So much so that everyone listens. Pretend not to recognize it. It's not very intentional. The fire is as good as the enemy. You are not a thief, you are a thief. The West drum turns the speaker. That's right, you're not a disciple of the mountain. In front of me is not the Son of God. I'm just slashing a robber. They are threatening us in this place. He cut the sword as if to pull it out. You think the old man is smart? I suggest you take off your mask now. I will end this case properly. But if you're going to do this shit to the end, I will tell you the hand. Sighing in the ass, I said before. If you tell me now, tell me. What is that strain? Give me all the information you know. I will let you out of here. And if we're not sure, we won't make concessions. Your eyes are full of blood. The master silently watched. He said, the mountain has grown, I've heard of it. The dragon ball is the strongest. He scratched his head and laughed. You have embarrassed me so much. Too many words. He continued, but we don't know these things at all. Even the work on your sword depicts the flower of tomorrow. You are the dragon god. So his hand holds the sword. Even if you are seriously injured, I can still speak. The master shouted loudly. Take out the sword. Chinese Cotton calmly observed. The air is as sharp as a knife. Even if he doesn't make a pose, he doesn't move. But the gas, it seems to pierce the enemy's flesh. Immediately, his sword radiates black energy. Even the second-generation disciples, I also consider him a post-mortem. But this person is not that level. His eyes flashed with anger. At this level, he's a master. Of the people you're dealing with, since birth until now, the true sword of Vo is. The middle butt also gently drew the sword. You also want to say one more word. You should be careful. The head in the sword handle he held across. Put your sword on the back of your head. Looks arrogant and defiant. Because this is my habit. Middle buttocks stand against hips. The other hand holds a sword in the sky. He was also seriously staring at it. Now it's quiet. You two stand a distance. Face to face. My lips are a little nervous. He remembered the previous scene of Bak Thien. You said it seems like you misunderstood. With that power, you are great. They won't pull him out. He's only dealing with people of the same level. The sword turned to smile. That's what he said. This makes my feet a little nervous. Hoa main sword. Who overwhelmed you? That's what I said. It means Dragon Mountain. He is the strongest of the disciples. Are here to stay. But even so, you alone dare to face the unscathed. At least 30 years older than you. My feet turned to look. Uninjured master. People who are at the same level. It's called the absolute strong. There's one more thing I want to bet on. You raise your index finger. I urge you. This bet. It is the winner of the battle. It's boring to get nothing. You have an idea. Let the other person know something they want to hear. Middle buttocks want to know what swordplay is. He closed his eyes with a silent sigh. A moment later, he said, if you lose, you have to take that veil off and put your head down. The paint must admit, it is not an opponent of the. Middle buttocks are still stubborn. I told you I'm not a painter. You close your eyes. But that's okay. If that's all, I agree. If you lose, you'll not lose. With a little emotion, he was silent. Middle butt out words challenge gagged. Pick your finger, go ahead. He was upset. Now you're telling me to attack earlier. For a long time, they were just fighting each other's eyes. Without adding anything. Master seems to be mad. Around his body radiating green energy. Blazing like a fire. You are too arrogant. He raised his face to his angry glistening eyes. Not long after, you raised your sword. If you don't go first, I'll go first. Something's rushing towards the monk's face. Create extremely large gas source. In the blink of an eye, the tree behind him broke in two. He glowed in amazement. His cheeks are bleeding. The surprise is, the buttocks did not change position. But you can still make the tree fall apart. The teacher scratched her eyes and turned her face back to watch. He's gaping in wonder. The buttocks calmly said this was just a greeting. Around the smoke and dust everywhere, he looked at the tree on the ground holding a silent sword. Just now, if he aimed at her, you'd have dropped your head. He was worried about the blood coming out of his cheeks. He wiped the blood with his hand. Thank you for bringing down love. He heard that, sighing. You're just kidding. If you want to give thanks, hit him kindly. Don't be half-hearted. His hands are tight. In a moment, where did the master disappear? It amazes you. He appeared directly in front of you. The energy is getting stronger and louder. I think so too. You're smiling like that, aren't you? He struck a blow with the sword. The radiant energy that makes you fling aside. It's so powerful that it creates a deep black hole. Watch the attack like a bomb. He clings to a nearby cliff with his hand. I saw it clearly. His face continued to soar upward. Martial arts 100 years ago and martial arts now. How different is it? You think. He's galloping. Take the sword straight to the middle. Are clinging to the cliffs. He attacks you with his sword, and Ra holds the blow. Both have strong friction with each other. But face to face. Let's look at each other. VA touch hand jet makes the two sides separate. Martial arts has developed. You're a little surprised. Your feet are on the ground, and then quickly soared up again. They're both flying like two squirrels, constantly attacking the balance sheet. Use your sword to point directly at the enemy. This creates a very strong force like before. As the middle buttocks promptly dodged the blow, his feet were clinging to the ground. Or has been weakened. I lost something after the war with magic. You keep thinking. They're both flying in the air, and suddenly he's blinking out his eyes. The middle buttocks use their legs to kick a kick from the back. It's as powerful as a big explosion that causes pain. He hollered and gritted his teeth. Hands in front of chest by reflex. The kick just made a big hole in the cliff. But its jets are so powerful that it makes you jump down. He fell to the ground in front of his disciples. Feet of panic screaming. He urged her to run to him. He's open-mouthed. A strong radiating light. It's spinning around like an illusion. The sword that martial arts are very proud of. Need an abundance of internal resources to maintain that powerful airflow. That's why. Why are the disciples of the second generation of Vo? It can only stop at the end. Two Chung Cotton clung to the cliff and watched intently. Martial arts of Vo is the martial art of the true full air. Even though the post-invention is characteristic of Vo is. After all, they still need endless power to overwhelm their opponents. It means that even if we practice a martial art together, it depends on how strong the power is. Power will be as different as heaven and earth. Of course, your sword. It is very suitable for the name of the king. Shoo shoo, middle buttocks talking and stretching out the back to create energy. But it's not enough. You're soaring towards the aura he radiates below. The sword in my hand is flaming blue. Put the head of the sword down. This power, it's like splitting the energy into two. Wherever you go, you're automatically separated. He blinked with anger and panic. There can be no such thing as air. Vo's perpetual perpetuity is being split into SAO. Suddenly, the pupil in his eyes flashed like a headlight. He gritted his teeth. If so, let us try to stop this sword. He shouted, standing up, his sword flaming with fire. This is the Thai sword. Just held up the sword. It's a source of energy like silk. Spinning in the air. Swipe straight up. The people around, it's also alarmed by its power. Take your hand tight. Feet amazingly perfect. Thai French sword is deployed perfectly. Like this. Then why? Is there an AI that can stop that powerful internal force? Meanwhile, the little butt of the cliff comes down. Hoa Sun God long, no matter what kind of fish you are. They can't stop the sword. It's like the Yangtze River. He warned. Middle buttocks under tight tongue. Your shadow gradually fades in the technique. His tremendous energy. He used his whole life to grind his teeth. I'll end it all with this sword. Suddenly, his eyes opened wide. It just takes a simple swipe of the sword, a large amount. His sword had melted into a cloud of smoke. Not only that, quantum energy sword technique of the middle butt attacks straight into the shock. Make you cry out in pain. His eyes were white, his mouth wide open, as if his soul had departed from his body. The middle buttocks flew down. It's nothing special. That's all the power of the three swords. Suddenly, he fell to the ground with his mouth open. Face up above. If you're still staring at me, that's not okay. The Chinese jumped directly over his head. The sword's handle pointed straight down from the top. His eyes flashed red with ferociousness, and he brought out the lotus. We have to fight first and talk later. The king opened his eyes to see the dragon god. Thai French sword. In Aha's skin sports. It was easily solved by him. He hurriedly dodged and spun away. Middle buttock's sword plugged straight down. His position just stood. The earth is crumbling. Strong destructive force tossed. 3 swords to one side. Made him shiver and lie flat on the ground. Try to sit up. In fear of thinking. The sword was surprisingly strong. If we get hit, we don't just. It stopped at the fatal level. It will be death. The king looked towards the middle. Now you realize you're wondering. Now compared to that person, it is clear that our power is weaker. Someone with such power. Why did you cover your face and act so weird? The buttocks turned to look at the opponent. Her eyes flashed with interest, asking if she could avoid it. He stood up to restore his spirit. Now is not the time to think about this. In the steady grip of the sword, he spoke. You can easily split the sword. That's quite surprising. Mental and internal forces contained in the air sword just now. It's pretty big. He continued to carry the sword. No warning sound, swinging sword. Attack again, but this time, the technique was different. Seems the match is getting really intense now. The king asked, what if it's 10 air swords? Spanking next Thai sword French. Bar jiang endlessly. It's like a line of 10 twisting strings attacking. Middle buttocks excitedly smile. You're happy to say that you should have been like this sooner. From under your feet, a pool of still water and a few more delicate flowers. But immediately teleport, faster than the enemy's sword. It's the fragrance of adventure. My feet are amazed. To avoid the entire line of 10 air swords. Speed of the middle butt, compared to a couple of air swords, it's just mosquitoes. The shock's hands were trembling with great force. He must hold the sword with both hands. But quickly, his endless stream of jiang has been destroyed. Middle butt gently jumps up high. In the mind of an endless thought. To stop an endless stream of swords. It's not easy. So little Kier, it's out of the air sword zone of influence. That our air swords miss and go to waste. He bit his teeth. But I've been waiting for this moment. The moment that boy is strapped in the air. There's no place to set foot. Then he took the opportunity to become a mayor. The Chinese quickly stopped him with a sword. Face to face with both of his moves. At the same time, it didn't stop there. He went into town, creating a whole field of airflow as the tornado is coming. The president leisurely said to use it all the time. You also practice a lot of power. In your heart, you think. Just narrow the space tacos can avoid. They just kept attacking. This attack came as a surprise. But some of these blows, it doesn't hurt you at all. On the contrary, it is easy to consume the enemy's energy. Take that opportunity. Attack. The first disciple of Vo was amazed. To all the names, I have to hide my face because of the power. Not only avoid the middle butt attack, and rush to strike back. Make the shock to avoid. Quickly back behind. worried that he is too strong. We can't predict his actions. He is superior to me in every way. If it's like this, he will surely lose at your hands. Vo's honor and his own will fall. The road is one of the three swords. How could he let this happen? Thinking you don't have to win. The command is still not used. But you can win. Maybe he wants to use the forbidden technique. He looked at the two people fighting. I was surprised to say that this is the airflow from the hands of the shock. It's like a swirl in front of you. Two hand crossed with the sword on the hand. That's the sword. My feet are amazed. The sword symbolizes the martial arts. The first sword of Vo is Tai Kai sword. Master has been imparted the wisdom sword Sao. The sword of air rotates like a spinning pole. He exclaimed, the master is sure to win the moment wisdom is developed. It is also the time to divide. He didn't even finish what the middle S screamed. He pointed his sword at the opponent. I just insulted this idiot. The sword of the middle butt is simple. To break the sword of the martial arts. Into the town in shock. How to do it? You are angry that we are fighting. What are you doing? Then angrily brandished his sword in his face. The sword of the strongest man in the world. 3 chipped swords. Bleeding nose, bruised face. It's overwhelming to step back. The Chinese asked, this martial artist really doesn't have any basics. Use skillful swordsmanship to duel an Eton. AI. A guy 30 years older than you, and he's hitting and swearing like you. But dare to. Every stroke is a curse. You're not good at using the sword. 2 feet on the ground. The middle of the ass keeps screaming. The first martial artist with his back bent like a shrimp. 2 white eyes. Mouth gaping. Nose bleeding to low life seems unsettled. In the heart of thought. If you stand still, you lose anyway. So I pulled out the last trick. But also this one. The buttocks in front of him questioned him. You think there is no basis, but using a good sword is stronger. Sao. You keep fighting. How did all that time go by? You still haven't made any progress? You yell at the bastards and then you're angry. This time it was unscathed. In the heart of calculation, if we stay like this, we're really dead. To run away. Just once. We just need to create a loophole once, and we can live. Just once. There is no loophole in the middle. Keep swinging your sword. He contemplated the moment the sword touched. If you put your strength in your feet, and this time you're going to hit him in the head. The king bit his teeth thinking right now. Quickly raise the sword to the defense. But the KEMN of the middle butt is coming. Powerless to stop. That's the way. Make your opponent unable to predict your actions. That? He screamed his chin out under the bastard. So use your fists. Give him a pinch of the cheek. Deviated jaw blood nasal. Trembling and falling into his mouth, muttering every word bastard. He lies flat on the ground. Vo's descendants are rushing too. Middle buttocks beat hands finished talking. That's why you're great sex. You teach them to teach them. When you scream, you just block each head. How naive and stupid it must be. They believe the word of the enemy. It's good, Feng said. Think that you've had a precious experience. Then you realize that there is information. Immediately go to the footstone called into town. Stand up, now elephant, tell me about the sword. Let's find something. But powerless. He's unconscious. He scratched his head and asked his grandchildren. Looking at this state, he must be sleeping deeply. 3 days, I sniffed hard. You are standing there, and you are called back. Let's call the dog back. Feet sweating and shivering slowly walked over. I will ask you to tell me, swordsman. He reminded me of the sword. You called the sword by the right name. But the silent feet did not utter half a word. You raised your fist to warn me. Looking at the fist in his heart, he was afraid. Eating Kir's fists is done. But this is our ultimate self-respect. It's good to have your ass turned around. I admit the man who promised to say this. You keep pushing him into town because you don't talk. So I have to wake up the one who says, wake me up. Yes, the blind man asked why. You grabbed him by the neck with one hand and said philosophy. I've lived and realized this. You can't use violence to solve everything in the world. But it can solve most of that. He said and raised his fist. His eyes glowed with terrifying gas. My ass threatened me. At some point, he will wake up. Or you're dead. Stay still. Don't open your mouth at all. Feet pale, face meth, body trembling. Now, what about self-respect? I have to open my mouth. Set. The one-armed man urged him to turn to him. Are you going to steal the grave now? Martial arts is short of money. He stuttered in denial, not that. The feet say, put that thing down first. I mean, push him. You idiot. Yang was unconscious, with a deformed face asking, this thing. And then it shakes like a doll, says don't worry. As long as you talk properly. He's not hurt. Maybe we've heard everything. And still fight. He looked at his feet in a sweat. Do as you wish. In fear, not sure whether to believe it or not. He continued to answer as he said. It is a middle buttocks tomb. So the martial artist is looking for a grave. Foot illusions explained, for the wind's grave is of the unscathed sword. You're a little surprised. I am talking about the sword as we know it. If you look at it now, it's the first world. Why 200 years ago, the middle butt asked. So that person's grave is Sao. You asked me to come here to excavate it. His feet nodded and said yes. Middle buttocks blame. You guys, you have to steal a grave like that? But why do I have to? You wonder if there's only one. You too have earned the title of the first man in the world. It must be the grave of the sword. After all, Sao is not an ordinary person, but Vo is sending back to steal the grave. Feet immediately replied, I have heard recently that there are thieves in martial arts. He continued, and in the process of tracking. To investigate the thief, I found the museum. And when you analyze the museum, mid-buttocks ask if there is something near Indonesia. Feet illusory. You keep talking. But you only know the location. They have not determined the exact location. Deduce that? So you're going to come here and investigate. But if those people are suddenly coming here to investigate, we'll be suspected by everyone and beaten like dogs. That's why you kicked the flower out of Indonesia. To avoid people's eyes. I said no, wrong. My feet are closed, that's right. Sighing my ass makes sense. It's moving to a small place like India. It's already very strange. You keep asking. So there's something in that swordsmanship. When you answer here, your feet are stuck. That one. The middle buttocks spurred him when shaking the threat. You're not even going to tell me. Grinned and said, if you don't even confess, don't blame me for doing it. He told me everything about the sword. As his name suggests, I am the one who steals someone else's sword. He didn't belong to any sect one day. He appeared mysteriously and fight with the masters of the world. After winning he will take away the enemy's army as a trophy. How can we know the intentions of the living? 200 years ago, even though Sao, after gaining the love of the contemporary masters, he suddenly disappeared. And the love of the contemporary masters, the sword in the sky, has been captured, the god of war. Middle buttocks suspect, or they're willing to hand it over. It's that simple. I guess they bet on each other. If you lose, you must give up your army. If he wins, he must surrender his weapons. He has won it so far. But no one wins. After the disappearance of the sword without money, disappeared on the lake. People have been saying this. The silver sword has hidden all the weapons. That he won, into a place. And he took that place as his grave, as well as to hide martial arts secrets. So people started looking for the grave. Or his sword. It's enough to interrupt. From this point on, it's pretty clear. You ask next is just a normal legend. It's a normal story. That's the normal story. Back to reality, Sao. So you're going to excavate that tomb. To take the gods and the Kung Fu secret of unbridled sword. En Jian Nu Yen, yes. Are you suspicious of asking that? That's all. He said, yes, I can say that. The middle buttocks clasped to him and said, that's it. But he scratched his hand and spurred him on. Make the feet suddenly scream, oh. You haven't stopped slapping. A few more, slapping and teaching. If the one below is wrong, the one above must be beaten. What kind of boy did you teach him? The devil asked what you were doing. Hurry up, I told you all the truth. But still warned by Chu's ass. You think I'm a fool. You keep saying you're not lying. No, you're not lying. But you didn't say everything. He looked down at her with half an eye for the last time. Okay, I warn you. And he shoved it in his face and urged him to continue. I have to wake you up. Middle ass laughing. Martial arts. You need the martial arts of that merciless swordsman. Are you kidding me? 3 feet in the grave. To hear this, you must be alive in the grave. Use Tai Chi to kick your head off. Make up that VA shit. When I say wrong, I urge you to keep fighting. Just hitting and swearing. The boy opened his mouth and lied to me. Let me beat you up. Feet in a hurry. If you continue, you will really die. You don't care. As if to say, you can die right away. He fired up his hands and looked at him. You guys, if I thought you wouldn't talk, I wouldn't know why. If you'd come here like this, prove that there must be one of you. I hold the museum in my hands. Just take it and decrypt it yourself. Hold my hand in red smoke and keep talking. You dare to make fun of me. Now switch from eating figs to eating punches. The feet of the illusory fear gaping open mouth. His face was bruised and deformed. If you eat more of this punch, I will definitely greet you cordially. He quickly shouted the elixir. The power of the punch was not small. But luckily the buttocks stopped. Thrown into the ground. He hurriedly continued to talk about medicine. Actually, the identity of the silver sword is the elixir. You suspect or ask him, is the elixir. It is rumored that there is the first method of knitting ancient Kim, more than 200 years ago. He shakes his head. Stuff Lin medicine. Just take a pill. The dead can also rise. Spiritual medicine has extremely high effect. It's called mixed knitting. Stunned buttocks screaming, he's the elixir. The name of the illusory foot. And he laughed and trembled and said, Ra is the elixir. The excited eyes went on, that's the elixir. That's what it's worth. You're doing this. His medicine. He is considered the first man in the world. Knitting from ancient Kim. Difficult to compare AI, but there is not much information about his identity. He trained very super Vietnamese. It's the kind of stuff that he created in the past. It is considered to break the Great Wall of Denmark, the ghost emperor of Shaolin. Who is in the hands of mixed knitting, there will be terrible power, to the point of being classified as a martial artist. That's why the name of the king of the price. It's not exaggerated at all. 100 years of stripping. Knitting mixture began to appear on the Gypsy Lake. To get the mixture. So many fighters don't hesitate to kill each other. Chinese cotton thought. It's like the mess he's talking about. It's not the tomb of the pharaoh. What that means is, it's got a knitting method in it. Are you sure you asked again? The grave of the sword. The sword is the tomb of the medicine. Right. The feet are not yet. Stop shivering and stabilize your breathing. It's no use keeping it a secret now. Look at his eyes. He won't let me go until he's clear. Middle buttocks face interested to see clearly. He immediately replied, We're hunchback. Medicine has risen to the position of the first man in the world, but still not recognized by the world. It's because his martial arts are unknown. And at the time, that martial arts thing, we've taken down all the gypsies on gypsies. It's a story we never think about. There's a lot of skepticism that, is he really the elixir? Although there's been a lot of rumors. But the elixir came out in denial, so all the questions subside. However, after the elixir died, one of his acquaintances has revealed the truth. That's something only a few schools know. My feet sighed. I've told you everything I know. In the heart of thought. Now I've taken one more step. He said that again, so let us go. Middle buttocks clapping chest. Of course it is, and I will forgive you. I'm a man who keeps his word. I know there is a sign. You broke up, said the last. Give me the museum. Let me walk. Screaming about it. Wait, we can't deliver the raw museum. The Chinese nodded and continued. Of course, I know that as you think. You have me.